Hello everyone, I hope you're having a beautiful day. Today, we're stepping into a story filled with quiet love and gentle care. A day when little Henry suddenly fell ill, and the entire family dropped everything to protect him. From Alex postponing an important company meeting, to his mother holding Henry in her arms like he was her own grandchild, to the tender silence that wrapped around the house as three adults cared for one tiny heartbeat. This episode is all about the kind of family love that doesn't need words, only presence. If this touches your heart, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next warm and healing story. Morning came quietly over the countryside, the kind of morning that usually carried the promise of a peaceful day. But inside the small farmhouse, peace was overshadowed by worry. Henry had woken warm and sluggish, his small body heavy against Lytuna's shoulder. His breathing trembled with fatigue, and his eyes fluttered in a way no mother wanted to see. She held him close, rocking him gently, but the weight of the farm's isolation pressed harder on her chest than ever before. Alex sensed something was wrong as soon as he entered the room. His routine dissolved instantly, the day's plans forgotten. He checked Henry's forehead, then met Lytuna's worried gaze with quiet resolve. A message was sent, a call was made, and the news traveled straight into the warm kitchen of Alex's mother. The older woman paused just long enough for concern to rise in her chest. Then she made her decision. Henry could not stay in that far, lonely farmhouse while fever pulled him into restless sleep. She wanted him home, safe, near her hands, near her care. Not long after, the low rumble of a car engine echoed through the front yard. The tires crunched over gravel, coming to a stop with a sense of urgency that filled the entire house. Alex stepped out first, lifting Henry from Lytuna's arms. The child whimpered weakly, his small head falling limp against Alex's shoulder. Inside the house, the older woman hurried forward. Her hands reached for Henry immediately, moving with the practiced confidence of someone who had cared for many fevers in her lifetime. She gathered the little boy into her arms, pressing him gently against her chest. In that instant, Henry melted into her as though her embrace had always been a safe place he belonged to. And Lytuna felt her breath catch. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't fear. It was relief, deep, overwhelming relief, mixed with something tender and painful. The realization that her son was being accepted as family, not out of obligation, but out of genuine love. Alex followed them inside, carrying the small bag Lytuna packed in a hurry. He set it down, then immediately turned his attention back to Henry, unable to stray far even for a moment. His phone buzzed with reminders, an important company meeting he was supposed to chair that afternoon, but he turned the screen face down on the table. Business could wait. His child could not. The house shifted into a soft orchestration of care. Alex prepared a basin of warm water. Lytuna arranged clean towels near the bed, and the older woman settled into the large armchair by the window. Henry curled against her, as if molded to her body. She supported his head carefully, rocking him with tiny, steady motions. His feverish cheeks brushed against the fabric of her blouse, and his fingers curled weakly around the edge of it. Every so often, the older woman pressed her lips to his temple, checking his warmth with quiet worry etched between her brows. Lytuna watched from the foot of the bed, her heart tugging in 1,000 directions. Each gentle motion from the older woman, each stroke of her thumb along Henry's back, each way she adjusted the blanket, carried the same tenderness she once wished for as a child, a grandmother's love, given freely to a boy not born from her blood. The morning stretched into early afternoon with a patient rhythm. Warm cloths were used and replaced. Henry dozed restlessly, shifting closer into the older woman's chest. Alex stayed near, his hands ready to assist, his expression soft with worry and devotion. When the fever peaked, Henry's breathing grew shallow again. The older woman tightened her hold, rocking him slowly, her cheek resting lightly against his head. She brushed back his hair and tested his temperature with experienced fingertips. Then she stood, still cradling him, and moved to the kitchen. She warmed a bottle of milk, testing it with the same precision she once used with Alex when he was small. Returning to the room, she held Henry securely and coaxed the bottle gently toward his lips. At first, he was too exhausted to respond. His chest rose and fell in uneven waves. But slowly, encouraged by warmth, by safety, by arms he trusted, Henry began to drink. His small hands reached out, gripping her fingers. His breathing steadied. The fierce tension in his tiny body began to dissolve. Relief washed through the room like a sigh. Alex sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, watching every swallow Henry managed. When the boy finally drifted back into sleep, the bottle half empty, Henry stayed nestled in the older woman's arms. His breaths grew deeper, softer, peaceful. Outside, the afternoon sunlight softened to a gentle gold. Inside, the house breathed as one. Alex reached over and squeezed Tuna's shoulder, a quiet sharing of hope. Tuna closed her eyes for a moment, letting the gratitude settle. And the older woman continued rocking Henry, her touch steady, her heart full. The fever had not yet fully broken, but love had already wrapped itself around him like the warmest blanket. The afternoon slowly melted into evening, casting long, gentle shadows across the living room where Henry slept against Alex's mother. She sat in the wide chair that had carried decades of memories, stories of raising Alex, tending to family, and comforting small bodies through nights just like this one. Now, Henry's soft breaths rose and fell against her chest, each one fragile yet precious. Alex stood nearby, watching with a stillness that came from deep concern. His company files lay untouched on the table behind him. The phone he had silenced earlier remained buried beneath a stack of papers. Work, schedules, responsibilities, everything faded into the background in the presence of a child's fever. Tuna moved quietly around the room, adjusting pillows, folding blankets, preparing water as though the rhythm of these actions grounded her. Each time she glanced at Henry, lying safely in the older woman's arms, her eyes softened with a mix of gratitude and longing. A childhood without this kind of warmth made moments like these feel almost unreal, like touching a memory she never had. The older woman shifted slightly, lifting Henry higher to support him better. His head rested in the crook of her arm, his small fingers curled loosely around her blouse. His skin still held some heat, but the trembling had eased, his sleep deeper and steadier than before. She lifted the bottle again, brushing it gently against his lips to encourage a few more sips of milk. He accepted them weakly, instinctively, drinking enough to keep his little body from tiring further. Then he drifted back to sleep, his cheek pressed near her heart. Outside the window, the sky faded into soft hues of lavender and blue. The last light of day slipped behind the hills, and a breeze rustled through the leaves in the yard. Inside, everything moved slowly, carefully, as though time itself understood the fragility of the moment. Alex brought a warm cloth and placed it within reach of his mother. She took it with a brief nod, wiping Henry's forehead with the gentlest touch. Her hands did not shake. They were steady from years of experience, steady from love that had matured and deepened through time. Lytuna watched her, absorbing every detail. The way the older woman tilted Henry's head slightly to help him breathe easier. The care in her movements, the silent devotion. It was a kind of love without boundaries, offered freely, instinctively, without hesitation. And it reached into the deepest places of Lytuna's heart, softening something she had carried alone for too long. Night descended fully, and the lamplight filled the room with a warm golden glow. Alex closed the curtains, but left a small crack for fresh air. He checked Henry's blanket, tucking the edges around him so the warmth held. Then he finally allowed himself to sit, one hand resting on Henry's leg, the other brushing a strand of hair behind Lytuna's ear. Their shoulders touched, their breaths matched. The quiet around them felt almost sacred. The older woman shifted Henry one more time, placing him gently on a pillow she laid across her lap. She checked his temperature with the back of her hand, nodded in relief, then reached for the bottle of milk and refilled it slightly to warm again later. In the kitchen, she moved with practiced ease. She filled a small pot with water, placed it on the stove, and lit the flame. The soft heat began warming the bottle she placed inside. The house seemed to exhale with her, slow, calm, wise. Meanwhile, Alex lifted Henry into his own arms, cradling the boy carefully. Henry nuzzled into him, recognizing his father even through the haze of fever. His small body relaxed, trusting, seeking safety. Alex rocked gently, the motion instinctive despite the day's worry. Lytuna watched the scene with a weighted heart. Seeing Alex hold Henry with such tenderness stirred something deep in her. A mix of love and relief filled her chest. Her son was safe. He was loved, truly loved. The older woman returned, placing the warm bottle on the table beside them. She adjusted Henry's blanket and brushed a hand through his hair, humming almost inaudibly, a habit she'd carried from motherhood into grandmotherhood. As the hours passed, Henry's fever continued to drop. His breaths became steadier, deeper. He stirred once, opening his eyes halfway, searching the room. What he saw, 3 people leaning close, watching him with unwavering care, seemed to calm him instantly. His gaze drifted from Alex's chest to Lytuna's face, then finally rested on the older woman, whose touch had been his comfort throughout the day. He sighed, the sound small but full of peace, before drifting back to sleep. The room felt warmer after that. Alex stretched his legs quietly, his exhaustion finally catching up to him. Lytuna placed a hand on his shoulder, wordlessly reminding him he wasn't alone. He covered her hand with his own, squeezing lightly in gratitude. The older woman, still seated with her calm strength, continued to watch over Henry with eyes softened by memories. Memories of Alex as a feverish child, memories of long nights spent soothing him, memories now blending into the present as she helped guide another small life through the fragility of illness. Finally, when the clock neared midnight, Henry's fever had almost completely subsided. His skin felt cooler, his breaths reassuringly even. The older woman lifted him once more to offer a final sip of warm milk before settling him into a comfortable position between pillows and blankets. Alex and Lytuna sat close, their legs almost touching the bed frame, their eyes never leaving Henry. The night felt long, But it was a night filled with quiet victories. A night where 3 adults carried one small child through fever with love instead of fear. A night where family, real family, showed its gentlest form. Henry slept deeply, softly, his chest rising and falling in perfect rhythm. And in the glow of the lamplight, the 3 adults breathed easier together, relieved, grateful, bound by a love that needed no words. In this gentle family episode, little Henry wakes with a fever that leaves him weak and restless in the quiet farmhouse. Worried, Alex immediately stops all work and brings Tuna and Henry to his mother's home, where help is close and love is abundant. The older woman takes Henry into her arms without hesitation, comforting him with the tenderness of a true grandmother. She warms milk, checks his temperature, and rocks him patiently through the long afternoon, while Alex quietly postpones an important company meeting to stay by his son's side. Tuna watches, deeply moved, realizing that her child is being embraced as family in the truest sense. Throughout the evening and into the night, the 3 adults work together in gentle silence until Henry's fever finally eases, and the home fills once again with warmth, safety, and quiet hope.